Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources in business and finance and career and health. More importantly, this show is all about athletes transitioning out of sport. It's such a major issue today. So we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey, their transition out of sport, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. And the whole idea is to teach and inspire athletes that there is, in fact, life after sports. Today, so excited to have Eric Ravotti. How you doing, Eric?
Good, Rob. I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you as well. So Eric grew up and probably played all the different sports, which we'll ask him about a little more about. But ultimately, he played college football at Penn State, and then he played the NFL for the Steelers. Once he was done with that, he had that entrepreneurial bug. So he just started getting into different things, working with businesses, kind of consulting, got into some land development, and then got into the retail world, and same thing into that whole idea of land and business development. And ultimately today he's the chief operating officer of MAC.BID, which is a very exciting company, which he's going to tell you about as well. We talked about it offline. I'm ready to go, sign on right after this episode. So Eric, talk about playing sports growing up and how that shaped you ultimately leading up into college.
Yeah, I think it teaches you a little bit of respect and a sense of understanding that the teamwork and being part of a team functionally and understanding that you have a role to play and trying to actually feel a sense of worth that you matter. And in a sport where there's so many athletes on the field at a time, any sport that has more than one, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and a lot of people support on you. And that's a feeling that I think a lot of young kids should probably try to learn quicker than later, which is an understanding that others are always going to be depending on you in some way, shape, or form. And how you perform, not just like the actual performance, but the grace in which you perform is very, very important. And I think that's important. And the aspect of adversity, Rob, is huge. The more adversity you can face early on in life, the stronger you're going to be able to handle what is coming down the road, which we all know as older guys are a lot worse than what you probably thought when you were 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 18 or even 20. So, there's much more challenging things ahead of you. And if you're more prepared that you've dealt with things at a lower level early on, I really feel that sports allows you to experience that adversity and that sense of being part of a team and how important you are. I think those are really two big items that are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now, did you have that dream of being a professional athlete? And if so, was it football or baseball or what was the sport?
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, maybe it's fate, maybe it's something else, maybe it's hard work or a combination thereof and genetics. I'm lucky because if you saw my family, I think the tallest person in the history of my family was 5'9". So, a 6'3" kid coming along, you have to question where did he come from, right? But I've asked that question and it was answered. I am truly their son, which is good. I think, from our perspective, there's a lot of support that is required to get no matter where you're going to be getting in life. And that's probably the most important part of things that I've learned, early on.
Yeah, I was always like I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately, the talent wasn't there, so I do podcasts and and I'm an entrepreneur.
Luckily, to your question, when I was young, my dad asked me what I wanted to be. Wanted to start sports. I liked football, and amongst other sports, like you said. But I did create, and everybody does this as their little kid. I said I want to be a professional football player. At the time, my father said, "Okay, well, there are goals that you need to accomplish. So let's set them out." So he drew this goal tree. And at the bottom of the tree, it was, making, the starting team at youth football and making the middle school team and making the high school team and then starting on the high school team. And, there was all these goals the whole way up to saying, getting drafted in the NFL. And at the time when you're a kid, you never really think too much of it. You may think you can get there. Your father's just probably, humoring you at the time to a certain degree. So we did set out like a goal. And we worked towards those goals. But this was long before, structured weightlifting programs and all that stuff. I mean, we would lift weights up. I had a bench in my bedroom with a bunch of sand weights. And we had no idea about what we were doing. So we would just bench for 4 hours every night. Like that's all we would do because that's all we knew. We didn't have any knowledge or direction. So, the goal was always there. Whether or not I realized I could make it or not, because we were just taking it day by day, is another question.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, but brought back memories to my brother had the weight bench in his room, and I'd do the record player, which who knows what records are now, right? These kids,
Yeah.
I'd blast like Asia or some of the other
Yeah,
ones.
exactly. Yeah, good stuff.
I get fired up and lift weights.
Mhm.
Let's fast forward into college. So we
Mhm.
talk about transition out of sport, and when you were in school, and probably the same thing with me, it probably wasn't a lot, but was there education ultimately about the transition out of sport?
Yeah. Absolutely. From recruitment, I was blessed
Okay.
enough to be heavily recruited out of high school, which was great. But ultimately, I'm so glad I ended up going to Penn State. And there's a lot of other schools that are wonderful as well. But I can only speak to Penn State and what it really did and how it shaped us. I mean, it's starting from the beginning. I mean, I was lucky enough to be mentored by Joe Paterno, who was one of the best human beings that I've ever met and ever been exposed to. And he was all about life lessons and preparation, that not letting football, one of the biggest things he always used to say, and it stuck with me throughout life, and I said it many times to my boys and other people, is that the sport doesn't define who you are. You may seem at times that it does, but that's not actually the way it works. And some people can get lost in sport and they think that that defines who they are forever. And that's not the case. And he was really big in his mentorship when he sat down with my parents and said, listen, I can't guarantee your son's ever going to play down with us. He's talented and he's got the potential. I can guarantee he's going to graduate and he's going to be able to have a degree. And that's the only thing I could promise you. And it's probably the one thing that I probably remember more than anything is it's the only time I've ever heard a head coach that was recruiting me say something like that. And then the question is, does it follow through? The answer was yes. They had a ton of support programs for you academically. And then once you graduated, there's a lot that was there for you to try to transition you that you could help rely on, alumni associations, things like that. And there were a lot of people that came before you, athletes and otherwise, that were willing to help you, unselfishly. And I think that, people learn that early on, and they feel good about the power of people, and networking, and individuals wanting to help another, and they want to continue to proliferate that. And I think that's the thing that I'm sure other schools do as well. But it was very special at Penn State in that way.
Yeah, that's great, and I think more schools are probably doing it today. But it's so important, and you do hear a lot. I mean, you're very fortunate to have Coach Paterno, and I think a lot of times you do hear stories of maybe the school itself might have not necessarily
Mhm.
done academic programs. However, the
Yeah.
coaches were pretty instrumental, especially the
Yeah.
old school coaches like him.
Yeah, that's the thing, Rob. Like nowadays, I mean, back in the day when on our program you couldn't have chin whiskers, he called it. The chin whiskers weren't allowed. You could have a well-trimmed mustache, which if you look back in the late 80s of the Penn State roster, see a lot of kids from North Jersey and Bergen Catholic and Cherry Hill and Pennsylvania that have those well-trimmed mustaches, but you'll see no facial hair. If you didn't have a certain GPA, you would never see the field. In fact, you may never see the field if you made a mistake off the field to embarrass the university or to embarrass yourself or your family or your teammates. That's just not like that anymore, as we know. They're different times, different challenges.
Yeah,
I'm just lucky that I grew up and was in a period of time where that mattered,
right.
because that shapes who you are.
I think that one thing I always talk about too, even I think from a recruiting perspective, is that if you've got a high school athlete as a parent and you're looking at multiple schools and you know that the one school has programs in place that will help your athlete transition out of sport, not only while they're there but also as an alumni athlete, because a lot of times I think alumni tend to get forgotten. So now imagine knowing that you can go back to your alma mater and have
Mhm.
help in that area because it is such a big issue.
Correct. Hmm.
So let's talk about networking, connecting, and
Hmm.
it's really important. Talk about the importance, especially while you're still playing your sport.
Yeah, I'm a great example. My how the foundation of where I learned how to run businesses came from a speaking engagement when I was in the NFL, and that's kind of how it happened. So putting yourself out there in the public eye as a life after football, while you still have some sort of notoriety locally or otherwise, is a very very critical path that you need to take. Continue to localize yourself in sports and sports only, and even in your off season, not doing anything to try to find a way to kind of branch out and network is a huge mistake.
Yeah,
And those that take advantage of it, I'm a great example of it. That gentleman saw me at a speaking engagement and he liked how I spoke, and he thought I would make a good representative, and he would like to have me come join him. And I said, I have no problem doing that, but I want you to teach me how to run businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to learn that because I know, I'm a linebacker from Penn State. I made it in the NFL, but every year I've got to try to make the team again. I'm not a superstar. It wasn't a first round draft choice. I start a few games this season because of injuries, but I'm not the starter. I'm a special teams guy. So I'm going to ride this out as long as I can and just be grateful. But I have to prepare for life after football. So Rob, as what you do, it's super important to make sure that you make connections and use what you can right now to get in front of people. And then you've got to basically, make sure that you can step up and be who you say you are, when you get the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the other thing too is like, even starting at a young age, and we always talk about encouraging, athletes, even in high school, you've got your friends, your, kids you play with, you got their parents, you just never know who people know and who they could be. And it's important. And I guess from your perspective too, having boys that, you said they played lacrosse. Did you see any of that? I guess especially with the success that you have, but like kind of parlaying that to them and teaching them the importance of networking at a young age.
Yeah, it was big because our boys went through. I mean, their second year of college. My two older boys, that's COVID, and unfortunately, COVID changed the game for a lot of these young kids that are developing, and kind of hamstrung them to a certain degree. That was a 2.5 year period, is very challenging on the developmental aspect of what these kids can learn. So, in just speaking to my kids in the time frames, where I stress with them is more in, even though life may seem like it's something that you're online, you're on Teams, you're on Zoom, and that's helping, you're working at home, that's not how you need to approach your future career. You need to network. You need to be seen. You need to make sure that you're relevant. And you can't do relevancy and build a career over your computer. It's not going to work like that. Showing the determination and the belief in what you're doing and showing up physically as much as you can is going to aid you well. And it's going to be the difference maker between yourself and maybe another candidate you're competing against. So for me, it was all about showing them that they need to be out there, meeting new people, and showing these people that it's not all about them, that they care. So there's a difference between meeting somebody with the intention that they're going to be able to help you sometime, and meeting somebody with the intention of trying to help them at first. And by default, they'll want to help you later on. And how I used to teach the boys is the same thing. It's like, listen, in my opinion, based on my experience, if you approach people with the intent to help them without asking anything in return, often it's going to come back to you tenfold down the road. You don't know when, you don't know where, but at some point in time, it's going to assist you. And if you can do that, in my opinion, I think you're going to be better off.
Yeah, I love that. And I talk about that all the time. That's kind of how I go about things, is always, taking that pay it forward mentality. But like, how can I help you? And like you said, it's going to come back. And that's so important. And even in networking, like, a lot of times, young kids would be like, well, what do I have to offer this person? They're successful, multi-million-dollar, people, whatever. Well, maybe you can help their kids, or maybe they just want to help you, or maybe, they want to relive their athletic, experience, and they're, they can do that through you. So it's important just never to, like you said, you got to have that helping attitude for sure.
Yeah, Rob, you're absolutely right. I mean, the biggest thing that young people need to understand about people that have had some level of success, whatever it may be, they've been there. They've been in that struggle. They know what you're going through. They've tried a million things that have gone wrong and didn't work. And then that one thing did work. So they have an ability to put blinders on you if you're willing to listen. Like I was used to tell my son, and they want to give help to young people. It's not, they're not selfish. Once you've succeeded, very few people that are truly successful in the right way that haven't stepped on people to get there, because there are people like that too. They want to help other people. And I always told my son, listen, when he wouldn't listen, I'd say, but if you came back 30 or 40 years from now and we're sitting in front of you and we're telling you what you should be doing, would you listen to yourself? And then he said, sure. And I said, well, he's standing here right now. That's me. I'm looking at you right now, and I'm trying to explain to you what you might want to try. So please listen to me, or at least listen to 50% of what I say. But again, every parent, right, Rob, goes through that challenge. But, people want to help. They really do.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about this is something with networking, connecting, and you look at different athletes in different sports. And we might have talked about this offline, but basically, it seems that the players from the sport, so they like the NFL players hang out with the NFL players, the NBA
Mhm.
with the NBA, Major League Baseball, Major League Baseball. Do you see any cross networking across sports and the value of that, whether it's at a professional level or even at the college level?
Huge value. I think the only barrier is the unwillingness to step across the aisle and stick your hand out. I mean, it really is. I mean, there isn't much different. I mean, whether you've played sports at a college level or professional level, you're just playing a different sport. The
Right,
reality is you've all gone through the same challenges together. You're all looking at certain things pretty much similarly. So there's no difference other than the unwillingness to actually try to reach out, and you're making a huge mistake if you don't do that. And it's not like organizations reaching out to other organizations, which I think that would be really wonderful to happen.
sure.
But you yourself, each individual needs to make a decision. Do you want to expand your network, or are you just happy with where you're at? But I can tell you, you can still be happy with where you're at and expand your network, even if
Right,
it's other than just expanding your relationships. I mean, it's still a really good idea, and if you can't offer anything to somebody, just a point of view sometimes is very, very powerful and very valuable, if
yeah,
nothing else. And that's me. Like, I think, Rob, and I've learned, and you can see I start to get excited about this stuff. I probably learn more about what I do and what I'm an expert at from people that have absolutely no idea what I do or how I do it or how
right,
it's done. It's because the way they think isn't the way that we've grown to think about the things that we're so-called experts at. And it's
right.
that point of view that's so valuable. So, don't just reach out to people that you think might be experts. Reach out to other people that might be able to give you a point of view that absolutely will just blow your mind and make you think about what you do completely differently.
Yeah, yeah, and you brought it up too. Is that I think there's that affinity as an athlete. Might be a different sport, but you have that same DNA, the same skill set. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
played. Most people played since they were young. They practiced preparation,
Yeah.
the team leadership, everything that goes about being an athlete comes into play there, and definitely encourage. I do a monthly networking event for my podcast guests, and basically, it's kind of cool to see. I'll have 10, 15 people on from different sports. I mean, I've got former NFL players, I've got Major League Baseball, I've got college wrestlers, snowboarders. It's across the
Yeah.
gamut, but everybody rolls up their sleeves and having that same athlete mentality. It's just kind of cool. Like, how can we help each other with our businesses, which is
Right.
nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about alumni engagement, and I know you're probably going to say just like with the from the education standpoint, Penn State probably does a great job with that. We're our athletes, and especially even today, let's bring it fast forward to current time, is Penn State bringing back athletes, not just for the golf tournament or the homecoming game, but
Mm-hmm.
really to work and mentor with the current athletes.
Yes. Yeah, they do a really good job of that, from newsletters and emails and constant communication. We probably get weekly communications from the Alumni Association, the Letterman's Club. Like, everybody has a Letterman's Club, to
Sure.
some degree. Ours is the Penn State Letterman's Club, obviously. But, there's a lot of great communication, a lot of great options, a lot of great things that you can show up for. And there's mentorship programs where, they'll go online and, you can apply basically to be a mentor for athletes that are interested based on what your expertise is and what you'd like to do. And you can put yourself out there if you're willing. I mean, it's just a donation of time.
Right.
But I can tell you, if you can, and this is what I've always said, and it's kind of what it seems like the type of person you are. If you can just find a way to enlighten someone or help them in some way, shape, or form, or make things easier for them or better for them, it gives you a far greater, it's kind of like parenting, right? Like,
Yeah.
my accomplishments are nothing, but, small accomplishments of your children are just huge to you. I mean, in
Yeah.
your mind, they're much better than anything you might have accomplished, right? My son made the starting lacrosse team as a sophomore or whatever. And it's like, wow, I feel better about that than I did when I made the NFL. Like, that's just the way it is. And I
Yeah.
think you could carry that, even though they're not your kids, and you can have the same type of feeling if you
Yeah.
just put yourself out there and just give a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, because I bring this up a lot on from my perspective. Like, I was on we were on a call with the athletic department from Delaware, and we had a former myself and a Hall of Famer from the school, and played 10 years in the NFL, and just saying, tap us in. He's saying,
Hmm.
tap me in. I'll
Yeah.
help, I'll mentor, and they just, in that sense, they still have the bandwidth. And I think, again, like some of these bigger schools like Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State probably do a
Yeah.
better job with that, but it's so important. I think people do want to give back.
Yeah. I think, Rob, I mean, one of the things that I think is important that probably can be done better. And again, this is just us talking and not to a university administrator
Sure.
or athletic department head. Um, because of the NIL era and these kids making anywhere from $200,000 to $4 million,
Right.
it's a little different. These kids aren't really thinking of anything but, now I might be set for life just playing 3 years in college. So the game has changed, but I think what could be still emphasized better by the athletic departments, which, and this may be a fair or unfair statement, is there needs to be more education of how the mentorship network for these people that are willing is valuable to you, even though you may not think it is, and to have an open mind. And if nothing else, you'll show whether you have interest in those things when you do eventually stop playing football, which could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now. So I think from a standpoint, having the programs available is good, but really promoting the programs for the players to take advantage of, I think still needs to be something that's improved across the board for scholars.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of talk a little bit about, like, from an NFL perspective, like an alumni there, is
Mhm.
there, I mean, I know they have an alumni association, they have a couple different entities that handle
Yeah.
NFL alumni. What kinds of things are they doing? And not just, again, from the front end part of, we have this, but educating and bringing people together.
Yeah, the NFLPA has done a wonderful job. I mean, with every new contract, they've negotiated some sort of extra benefit for us older guys, and for the guys that played long before me that suffered through all the CTE and all of that stuff, that nastiness of what used to happen. Um, I think they've done a wonderful job. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers have already been a family oriented type. I can only speak about that organization. They've been wonderful. So they have certain things available, but it's pretty an opt-in type of situation, like on a basis of the team itself, at least in our case. So there's things available, get-togethers, things you can go to. They always encourage you to come to football games, all that good stuff. The NFLPA really has done a wonderful job for former players and current players, from educational programs to assistance financial for many different things, from standpoints of severance for those that qualified for pension plans and joint replacements, and then also a lot of educational programs for people that want to transition from one career to another or learn about a career. So there's a tremendous amount of assets that are out there, but again, you have to be willing to take advantage of them in order for them to really benefit.
And I mean, that seems to be the key, because you just hear different stories about different leagues. And I know
Mhm.
one that comes up a lot is like minor league baseball, because a lot of these guys just, they don't, I guess it's getting better, but they don't necessarily get that support, that alumni support of just, okay, you're done. I mean, maybe you played a year or whatever it might be, but just now you're out,
Yeah.
and just to make an impact, especially with that transition when these guys are done.
Yeah. Big, very big.
So I don't know if you got a chance to watch or listen to any other episodes. So these questions may or may not come as a surprise to you, but they're easy questions.
Yeah. Sounds
Uh,
good.
so go back in a time machine, a little Back to the Future action. You go back to your freshman year at Penn State. What advice would you give to freshman Eric? 10 words or less.
I think the advice I'd give myself is to stay grounded. It's an overwhelming experience, and you have to stay grounded and appreciate the opportunity that you have.
Okay, and then fast forward to senior Eric.
Senior Eric was, thank God I listened to myself at the end of my freshman year. But, the same thing.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity you have and the platform that you had, whether you get drafted or not. There's still value in you and what you've accomplished.
Right. Yeah. That's great. It's funny because a lot of times I'll ask that question, and then they're like, okay, so they're counting like 10, and just, yeah, or they just give me an answer that's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah,
or which version of advice am I giving?
exactly. All right.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. So when you kind of had two transitions, obviously, transition out of college football and then ultimately out of the NFL. Talk about
Mhm.
when you were done playing football. So your whole life you grew up playing sports, and now all of a sudden it's over. How was your transition out of sports?
I was very blessed. I think I had a path that I had prepared for in the off seasons of playing football in the NFL. And I think my mentality was always, I don't know how much longer this is going to last. So I'll enjoy it while I can. I'll do the best I can. And someday someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me it's over. And then I'll have to make a decision to uproot my family and hold on to the dream, which a lot of guys do at the time. I had a friend that bounced around to 7 teams as a special teams, a really dear friend. And that was okay for him. And he played in the league for a decade. It wasn't something I was interested in. I was more interested in business. I was more interested in saying, okay, well, let me go from something that I don't have really direct control over to a certain degree, because I'm only going to be as big and fast and strong and as good as I'm going to be, and that's it. And the rest is out there, to something that's more of a controllable, that I can say, I believe in myself. I believe in my ability to learn and my ability to execute. And let's try to align myself with something like that. So for me, the transition was relatively easy, because then I transitioned right into business. I continued to learn and moved on from there with my career. Others that don't prepare or don't have a mindset to think that this will not last forever, or it won't set me up forever, which the majority, it might not set you up forever. I mean, now the league minimum is $840,000 for a rookie, just making the team. It was not that when I played. So now you can play a couple years and maybe you got a good nest egg of where you're at, but you still have to do something. So for me, the transition, Rob, was relatively easy.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think it's the biggest thing that I hear different stories, just the athlete just identifying themselves as the athlete. So you're Eric, the football player, Rob, the runner, Billy, the wrestler, usually the swimmer, whatever it might be, and you identify that. And then because it sounds like you talked about your off seasons and all, you had a really great game plan of, okay, here's my plan B, and this is going to be my next journey in life. So maybe a couple words of advice to athletes, whether it's when they're done with college or if they're fortunate enough to play professionally, like you, give some advice to them as they transition out of sport.
Yeah, I go back to the first thing that I was talking about. It's just, the sport doesn't define who you are. It really doesn't. And learning that quickly and understanding it's just something that you do, but it's not who you are. You may have devoted your entire life from the age of 12, like myself, to this one sport, and you're sitting there in your mid-20s now, and they say, you're not good enough to play anymore with us. We're going to let you go. If you've understood that that's just a job and that's just what you do, then your life isn't over, right? Because that's not who you were. You're just going to now have to do something different. So not letting the sport define you and make it like make or break. I have to do this and this is all I can do. Learning that early on is going to really pay huge dividends down the road, because it always ends for everyone at some point.
Absolutely. And I guess looking at how did being an athlete prepare you for your success that ultimately you've had in entrepreneurship and business leadership?
I think the biggest thing was the adversity. Like we mentioned earlier, I mean, overcoming it early on allows you to be able to not be afraid to learn new things or take chances in life after. Like when you're at that crossroads and you're presented with an opportunity that you know nothing about, or maybe you know a little bit about, having the courage and belief in yourself, right? That, okay, can I accomplish that? Do I think if I work hard enough, do I believe in myself enough that I could possibly be successful? And it always doesn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't. But that's a key moment where if you look at all the great things that have been accomplished over life for any person, they all have these moments, or many of them, these crossroads where they have to face, and they've got to answer that question. That's a decision they need to make. Do I feel that I could possibly make this work, and I'm going to try it and I'm going to take a leap? Or am I going to just take what's safe, that I don't have to risk anything? And that's good too for certain periods for people. But, others that really want to try to attain things have to take risks. And I think in sports in general, regardless of what you play, your ability to try to overcome adversity early on and having that ingrained in you allows you to not have that fear to take that chance.
Yeah, it definitely prepares you. And I mean, there's so many things that you do, and you're right. Adversity. I mean, a lot of people, because you see a lot of companies want to hire athletes. I mean, I was talking another podcast. We're just talking about the whole athletes. They don't, their resume doesn't look that great, maybe in certain instances, because they don't really have time to do internships and all that. And I always say, well, being an athlete is your resume. And I mean, talk a little bit about that as far as, being in the roles that you've been in a hiring position, looking to potentially hire athletes.
Yeah, I think once you've been through it, it's hard to explain how difficult it is at any level of college sports to play a sport. Even Division III, the time commitment for a lot of
Yeah.
these kids is almost the same. Okay, it's almost the same as a Division I Power Five conference, which is crazy because they're not getting the scholarships, but the time commitment is pretty much the same. And to me, there's a tremendous value in a student athlete of any sport. Whether it's football or diving or fencing or lacrosse or whatever. It's being able to devote time and still go through what a normal student would have to go through. It's taking out a tremendous amount of time that other students don't have to worry about and having to focus on. So not only focusing on improving yourself in that sport and trying to attain goals within that sport, but also carry the same amount of credits as every other kid in college. To me, that's a difference maker, regardless of, so maybe I don't look at the GPA as much. I mean, as long as you're going to class and you show me that you're passing your classes, good for you. But what else are you doing? Like anybody can just go to class and pass a
Right.
class, but what else is there? And playing a sport, in my opinion, is just as valuable as any extracurricular activity that they would be involved in on a resume, personally.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of companies out there. I mean, you've got the medical device companies, and a lot of companies just want to hire athletes. They just
Mm-hmm.
they see that DNA, the skill set, and it's important to them. So you went through and you did different. You got in entrepreneurship. We talked a little about that offline, and the
Mm-hmm.
land development, a lot of different things. But ultimately, you got into leadership with a couple of large companies,
Mm-hmm.
and then today you are the chief operating officer at MAC.BID. So talk a little bit about your company, and that I mentioned the start. I did that little teaser, everybody. So when we're done with this, you're all going to get. We're going to get off. We're going to get on Mac.bid. But talk about your role there and some of the things that you're doing at Mac.bid.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting because it specializes in the reverse logistics, which is a term that's misunderstood by a lot of people. So if you think of Amazon or Target or Walmart and sending anything to you online that you buy every single day and the box shows up the next day, that's the logistics model of fulfillment, for those type of companies. So, well, there's a whole different dark side of this that happened when you decide you don't want your product anymore and you want to send it back or return. Then that product becomes what's called liquidation product, whether it's Amazon or Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's or Wayfair or whatever it may be. That goes somewhere, right? And that's a problem for retailers. So what we do is we contract directly with retailers like Amazon's one of our largest partnerships that we have, where we will purchase every amount of liquidated item that comes through their return facilities across the country. So we've got a good bit of them right now that we're under contract with. And our requirement is that we send our trucks to them and all of this returned items that came for whatever reason get loaded onto a truck and they get sent to one of our facilities. Now, once we get them, we get those cataloged, we put those in the system, we scan them, we create what's called listings or postings of items that we then put through our proprietary auction platform. And people can bid on these, and bids all start at $1, and you can bid on them. So there's new products, there's just open box products, there's all kind of different products that are labeled as such with pictures and listings, and it's an open auction for anybody that wants to participate, from $1 to whatever it sells for, and that's all up until the bidders, what they decide to bid for it and how far they're willing to go. Each one has a certain time frame, anywhere from 2 to 3 days or 4 days in some cases, that the auction's up for each item. And then someone wins an auction, they get a notification, then they come in. So it's different from eBay. So we're getting these products directly from the retailers. We're not proliferating a sale from one third-party person to another, where you can't really control the quality or legitimacy. Ours is directly, like, say, from Amazon or Walmart or whatever that may be. So we're getting it directly from them, and we're buying the product, and we're auctioning it to the public. The public buys it, they come in, they pick up the product. That's the difference in our model. We have some shipping, but we're not really shipping. We're not sending things or asking people to pay for it right now. We're asking them to just come up. And that's the whole model, is that, would you want the ease and convenience of being able to just come get it yourself and not pay for the shipping? And that'll continue to allow you to have things at such steep discounts that you can't get for the same price in a retail location. So that's basically what it is in a nutshell.
So does it get inspected at
Mhm.
from the Amazon perspective first before it comes to you, or how does
Yeah,
all that
so
process work?
Amazon, it's interesting. I don't know the inner workings of the quality control. I know because of the volume, it would be very difficult for them to do anything but spot inspections, but they may do that. I'm not certain. I know only when we get the product, we open up the box to make sure that that's what when we scan it, that's what's inside the box.
Right.
We can't test for full functionality on every product because we have anywhere from 75 to 80 or 90,000 items a night being auctioned.
Wow.
So we scan upwards of 100,000 items a day. So it's tough. You can only do a cursory, inspection, but the reality is it's a visual inspection to
Right.
make sure that it's the type of product that we're listing. There are certain things where we can't see visible damage, but maybe there's damage and then they can return it. I mean, we've got a return policy, just like a retailer would. So we're an interesting animal because we're 1 foot in wholesale, 1 foot in warehousing, kind of 1 foot in retail. We market it like a retail company, like we did at GNC and other companies that I work for. But we are completely different. We're kind of like an odd solution to a return industry that's significantly large right now.
And then, so how does it work with the, you have, obviously you have multiple locations. Would I be looking at it like I'm in South Florida, let's say? So am I going to go to somewhere in Florida? Am I have to go to another state? Like, how does that work? I mean, obviously you're growing and having success,
Yeah.
but talk a little about that.
So it's basically a regional draw for each facility that we have. So for instance, we've got 2 facilities in Las Vegas, 2 facilities in Phoenix. We've got Colorado Springs. So, if you're in those municipalities within driving distance, then these auctions would be ones that are of value to you because our model is you have to come pick it up. So in South Florida, we don't have anything right now that would be close or within drivable distance, which would be, anywhere from 30 to 60 miles. Usually it's an hour and a half drive time max that our clients come. We've thought about dipping our toe into shipping, but that's a whole different operational model that we have to prepare for. So it's difficult. We do ship certain items, certain auctions that we provide, like our turbo clock auctions that are a reversal auction that starts from a high price and then it slowly decreases and you can buy at different levels. And there's a whole thing to that. But, we're not really to the part where we're ready to just do nationwide shipping to people. So often the sales revolve around that, hour to an hour and a half drive time of each facility.
Okay. So how many different facilities do you have right now?
We have 29 now. So,
Okay.
when I came in the spring of 23, we had 9. And now we have 29. We just opened our 29th in Macon, Georgia, which was still not close to South Florida, but the closest one.
No, but the irony of that is my brother lives in Macon, Georgia,
so he can get it for you. And then when you see each other, yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Or he'll just get it for himself. So I just got you a new customer in Macon, Georgia.
Well, you can do what I do. I see auctions across the country, and since I visit all the locations, I just have them hold my product for me that I win, and then when I go visit them, I pick it up.
You have anything in Chicago area?
Nothing in Chicago. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at least I know I've got Macon, Georgia. So everybody. And I would assume if you go out to the website, then it tells you like where the different locations are.
Yeah, MAC.BID. You can set your preferences for locations. And then you'll see all the auctions that are at those locations pretty much every day.
But obviously, if there's a lot of good items on there, it might be worth a trip to like your nearest state. So you got to get South Florida on your location list.
It's definitely on the radar screen. There's no question.
Yeah, we definitely want to see it down here. So, how can people find you?
Just go to MAC.BID. Just MAC.BID, MAC.BID. That's all you need to do. You can learn everything you need to learn, and pretty much is self-explanatory from there.
Okay, I guess I can find you like on LinkedIn and
LinkedIn and all the socials. The same thing. MAC.BID.
Got it. Okay, good deal. Well, you can find us at alumnidirect.com. The show Athletes, the Entrepreneurs Alumni Journey is across all different podcast networks, our Alumni Direct YouTube channel. And, each week I just wrap up the episode and there's so many, as I call them, the nuggets. There's so many good nuggets that Eric shared with us today and our other podcasts in the past. And just really encourage athletes to watch and listen. I mean, this is something, it's so important. Athletes transition out of sport is a major issue today. And we want to make a positive impact and just, getting the advice and the stories that we're hearing from these former athletes is pretty awesome. So Eric, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate your time today. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure.